We are at the forefront of many innovative and exciting things developing in the world of senior living. With Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, as our guide, this show will shine a light on how older adults can embrace these changes to live active, happy, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Through discussions with senior living and hospice professionals, architects and designers, and people of all ages, will help today's seniors envision the art of the possible and take steps toward achieving the future of their dreams. Welcome to At the Forefront.
Welcome to At the Forefront. I'm Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, and today we're going to talk about dementia, Alzheimer's, different memory-related issues. It's something that touches many people, and if you're working in senior living, many of us experience it every day, and if you're a family member watching, you've had interactions or have a loved one perhaps who is dealing with dementia care. Very excited today to have Cheryl Harding with us from the James L. West Center for Dementia Care. Cheryl is the president and CEO of James L. West. So welcome, Cheryl.
Hi, Tim.
Very happy to have you here, and oftentimes when we hear in the Metroplex about dementia care, innovative dementia programming, or the positive things in our part of the industry as it relates to dementia care, James L. West is always mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of James L. West?
Yes, and thank you for having me. I'm always happy to talk about James L. West. James L. West is a 30-year-old not-for-profit organization. We were formed by First Presbyterian Church, which is across the street from us on the west side of downtown Fort Worth. They developed a committee to study different types of dementia care around the country. They were very innovative. This was in the mid-'80s, and they actually started their own senior day program in the basement of the church while they studied around the country to see what the best example of dementia care would be. And so they went around and looked at different facilities around the United States and came up with the concept. Our medical director, Dr. Janice Knable, was on that committee, and she's still our medical director. So she had a large say-so in how the care model was developed. So it's a unique care model. I've seen a few others like it around the country, but we place people in small house units based on their level of cognition. So it's very unique. James L. West also has a day program. And so we have the residential care, we have the day program, and then we have a very robust education program.
So as I was doing some research, there actually was a James L. West.
There was, Mr. West, yes.
We talk about that inspiration and how his wife helped change things based on her experience.
Yes, so she was his primary caregiver. He was an executive at Tandy, which was Radio Shack. And he had Alzheimer's disease when it was very early that people were learning about Alzheimer's disease. She wanted a place to care for him, and so she was part of that committee. And they did not have children, so they gave a large amount of money to First Pres to fund the building of James L. West. He did not get to live at James L. West, but we have a beautiful bronze statue at the front of the building of him and his little dog, which his dog's name was Tandy. So
what were some of those things? And we're looking at really the 80s, the mid-'80s, and I think that our view of dementia care, Alzheimer's at that time was different. What were some of the things that Mrs. West brought forward as this organization was developing?
She really was interested in James L. West Center being different and being state-of-the-art. They were very interested in what, at that time, there was limited research, but what was on the forefront of research and how to care for people. She also really wanted to make sure that James L. West was a teaching nursing home. So we are licensed nursing care with an Alzheimer's certification, but she wanted to make sure we also trained nurses and doctors and other types of healthcare professionals. So we've always done that. That's always been a really normal thing for us to have students all over the building and doing the rotations. And so we enjoy that still today.
So you actually started as adult daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about the journey from adult daycare and how you started with that, and then perhaps how you became who you are today?
Well, the day program started in the church in their basement, and they really they were just super innovative to start that back then. But they were serving church members as well as community members that needed assistance, and specifically for dementia, Alzheimer's. So when they studied the plan, worked with the architects, got the new building built, it was opened in '93. Then that day program from the church moved into our building, and there was a day program space built for it. So the current building had housed our day program and our residential care. It was a 112-bed nursing center for all these years. Just recently, we bought a new building for the day program and moved it out of the main building, which is the first time ever.
So many providers have either a live-in program, assisted living, skilled nursing, or an adult day program. Talk to us about having both and why you often don't see that.
You know, day programs are challenging, and they're not that prevalent in this geographic area. They're more prevalent on the East Coast and West Coast, but they're just not that model that's popular here in the Texas area. I believe they're becoming more popular. But for us, it's always been a natural progression for someone to start in the day program part-time because their caregivers caring for them at home, and then it's such a natural step to move into the residential. So it really helps folks come along and get prepared for that residential setting, and we also pair that with our education program so that we're helping them understand the disease and what to expect and how to manage it at home prior to placement. So it's very natural, and it really works well when they come through the day program first. Before they move in, because it's a hard transition to move someone into a residential setting when you've been a caregiver for a long time, but it's a great partnership.
So when you're looking as a family member and you're looking for placement, you're looking for a residence, the majority of what we see is assisted living memory support.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And you have skilled nursing
We do.
memory support. And can you talk to us a little bit about the difference? Forefront Living, Presbyterian Village North has both.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I'd be interested in your perspective.
So there are providers that have both, and that's interesting. James L. West, I'm not sure why they chose the nursing care license at that point. Assisted living was coming about in the 80s, but our direct competitors are assisted living memory cares. And honestly, we sell against that because we can sell because of our staffing model. The amount of nurses we have per resident, the amount of certified nurse aides we have per resident, the life enrichment programming that we have that is just far exceeds anything that assisted livings do anywhere. For instance, because we are licensed nursing, Alzheimer's certified, we have a 1-to-8 ratio for staff to resident ratio, which you would never find in assisted living. We also have a nurse per 20 residents, which a lot of assisted livings would not have a nurse even full time. So, and then our life enrichment program, this is not a regulation, but it's a James L. West model, is super robust in that we have any given time, we have one life enrichment full-time person per about 20 residents, which in a typical nursing home, you would see that more like 1 to 50 or 60. And then we have a full-time music therapist. So James L. West, from the very beginning, has really felt like we promote that life enrichment is just as important as the clinical part. The other piece, because we do the clinical, we can take care of any physical ailments as well. So we have, the full-time nurses around the clock. We have RNs. We have the medical directors that make rounds in the building. So it's clinical, but it's very home-like and very program-rich.
So in your history and in your materials, you state that you are a faith-inspired organization. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that plays into your programming and perhaps into why you do what you do?
So First Presbyterian, I mentioned, started us, and they do maintain one seat on our board of directors, which is important to us. And they are certainly a mission partner in lots of things that we do. But it's important to us, it's important to our staff that we maintain that faith-inspired connection. And a lot of places say faith-based. One of our board members said faith-inspired, and I just love that because that's so true. We were inspired by First Pres. So it's really important to our staff. We have a chaplain group that serves our staff. We pray for each other on a regular basis. We have, of course, Bible studies and things for our residents. And I think the families find a lot of comfort in that. I think there's really something pure about a not-for-profit that is mission-based and faith-based that families trust us more.
I would agree with you on that. I think we share some common DNA as far as our faith-based, and we're a Presbyterian-inspired organization
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah.
Program, and you've mentioned program. Describe what you mean by program. I think when we're out there, and if I were somebody that was looking for placement, I don't know that I would know where to start. And everybody mentions a program, and sometimes the program is in a book on a shelf, and it's very much, I think, a typical healthcare experience or nursing experience. Talk to us about program and what it means to you.
So life enrichment, keeping people engaged, really meeting them where they are, focusing on what they have left rather than what they have lost. It's very important to us for people to find joy each day and to enjoy what they do and what their interests have been. So we do not have a program, a one-book program. I know a lot of people, there are programs you can subscribe to, and they're great ones out there, but James L. West has never really bought into one program. We have a lot of programs that we have meshed into what we do, and then we use that to create our own curriculum and our own training. So our every new hire goes through 2.5 days of dementia training before they hit the floor, because we want them to understand what they are doing there and how important it is what they're doing.
Is that every position?
Every position. Mm-hmm. And I have some great stories about housekeepers who, because we always talk about they're kind of the hidden.
I can't say that not ask you to tell us one.
Well, yeah. So the housekeepers are that kind of hidden employee who know your residents because they're in and out of their rooms all the time, right? And they see things that maybe your aides don't even see. And so we have had some wonderful housekeepers that have learned in our dementia training and have redirected at critical moments when there was a behavior.
Is there one that stands out in your mind?
There was one, and what I was going to say, let me just say that these housekeepers we have recruited into our CNA training because we're like, you're an excellent housekeeper, but come be a caregiver. And we have our own CNA training, so we can do that. But just loving on our residents. We have one that was particularly helpful on our PACOS unit with the gentleman. We have a lot of gentlemen on that unit. And she was just so soft-spoken, and we had a few gentlemen who were rowdy, and she was able to, we called her the whisperer, she could just talk to them and to redirect them and get them to do things that other people couldn't do. And it didn't take us long to transfer her over to a caregiver because she was excellent. So we look for people like that. We're always looking for that heart. But we want everyone, front desk, housekeepers, everyone to have the same training because all of us are going to interact with our residents at some point. And so it's really important.
Absolutely. You and I were on a conference call, or actually a Zoom. We're on a lot of those together.
Yeah.
And I think it was a leading age meeting, and we were having all chatting beforehand. And you mentioned joy and Alzheimer's in the same sentence. And so often when that's framed, it's the long goodbye, it's the shock and the despair of the disease process. And I can tell just sitting across from you, I see the spark, I see the light whenever you talk about the people that we serve. Talk to me about this concept of joy and dementia.
So we, of course, we talk a lot about our programs and our education and our marketing and all these things. And dementia is a tough subject. There are a lot of serious things to talk about, but I tell you, dementia has such a stigma. The general public does not understand dementia. There's a fear, a huge fear, especially for older adults. In fact, I saw research not long ago that it's the most feared thing about growing older is the fear of getting dementia. And so, I am kind of on a mission to let people know that, yes, it's serious and it's scary, but there's still joy. These people are still living. They are still people and that have had wonderful lives, and we want them to continue to have wonderful lives. And so it is our job to find joy every day and to make sure that they feel joy every day. And I know it's tough being a caregiver, especially at home, but we want them, the caregivers to understand that there's ways to find that joy. And I think the first step is getting over the stigma, is really understanding what dementia is and how to understand how it affects people and really work toward finding joy. And I will say, joy is something you have to be intentional about anyway in life, right? You have to, you work at that every day, or if you're a joyful person, you want to find joy every day, no matter what. And so it's just important to do that with people with dementia. And I think the more we can talk about it and let the public know that it's not something to be afraid of. You hear the derogatory terms, you hear the jokes, and I just want us to be the ambassadors to promote that dementia, there's still joy in dementia.
So I guess we'll continue down that path with a question, then, because so often many of us interact with individuals who have a level of dementia or a level of Alzheimer's, or we're caregiving actively at home. How, and there's a lot of upset sometimes. Sometimes I think you've mentioned a couple of times in our discussion redirecting something. How do you find that spark or that kernel of joy? Are there any tips? Is there anything that you could perhaps share to help us as we're on that journey with somebody?
Well, first you need to know the person you're caring for. So if you're not the primary caregiver and you're a paid caregiver, then you need to know who you're working with. And it's really important to understand that family history, what they've done throughout their lives, and how you can find that spark. So you're not going to find it if you think they're interested in baseball, but they're interested in woodworking. You've got to know them. So that is a big part of what we do at James L. West, is getting to know that history. We want the families to tell us everything, even the things that seem minute. And I've said this so many times, if we would just get the person's obituary when they admit, we would know more about them than the families tell us at admission. That you read these obituaries and you're like, oh my goodness, why didn't they tell us that? And so, my plea to families is tell us everything, so that, because it may be the most minute thing that we can find.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you, is there an example?
Way back in my career, I read, I had a resident that I loved dearly, and I spent a lot of time with her. And she had dementia, so she was limited on what she shared with me. But I found out in her obituary that she was an opera singer and traveled Europe. I was devastated. I was just like, how could I have missed that? And so I've told, and it's a little awkward when families say, you want me to write their, I don't ever ask for that. But it's like, think about what you would put in their obituary and tell us that. Because they put things in there sometimes that are the coolest little tidbit that's not an education or those basic things, but maybe this little interest that we can pick up on. So for our team, it's a matter of trial and error sometimes. You're trying different things and just trying to find their spark. And, we had not long ago a resident who was a cowboy and had enjoyed the cowboy days, and so he still wore his boots and jeans, and we found out that he liked to rope. Well, then let's find out how we get that incorporated into his day, if that's something he enjoys. And so we did. We had a little cast thing and a rope, and Life of Richmond would take him out on the patio and he would rope. And so it's just a matter of finding that thing that sparks their interest. And it could be different every day. And music is the universal language. So if we do use a lot of music at James L. West, and finding that right music that they love, because everyone has a genre that they love. And so we just work hard to find that.
So let's talk about music for a little bit. And you mentioned you have a music therapist, and you mentioned finding the right music. Let's talk about the range. Forefront Living in our hospice, at especially the Pickens Center and Faith Presbyterian Hospice, we have a commitment to music therapy, and I'm noticing a little bit of a change in the types of music people are enjoying. Can you talk a little bit about music therapy and what it
Well, gosh, when I started in this field, we loved listening to the 40s and 30s, 40s music, because that's what our residents love. Well, you don't hear that anymore. Now we're listening to 60s and 70s music even, because unfortunately we have a lot of young residents too, who have early onset. But the genres have definitely changed, and we have changed with it, but that's part of it. I have never worked anywhere who had a full-time music therapist, and so that's been a big advantage at James L. West, is having someone who has the time to figure out those genres, and that's another thing we ask the families. And we help the families engage in the music, so we want them to come and be part of it, and to find those moments that they can come see their loved one and find joy. Because it's hard sometimes to visit someone in a nursing center. It's hard to figure out, what do I do with them? What do I say? Well, if we can create those moments for them and have them come be with their loved one during those music moments, that's important. So,
we've talked a lot about the families, etc., but somebody has to work in these buildings. Somebody has to provide that care. A lot of discussion about the current availability of workforce. And then you talked earlier about the stigma of dementia. Talk to us about the teammates, the employees, and how you recruit them and the teammate experience.
The workforce is a tough time right now, but when we find the right ones, it's certainly is a great moment when you realize you found the right person who really loves to be there. And so many of our teammates do love working with people with dementia, and they know that coming in, but it's really fun to discover it, for one of them to discover, oh, I had no idea I liked working with people with dementia, and here I am, But we do a variety of things to find the right people. We do all the standard things that everyone does, but we did start our own CNA school back in 2019, and that has helped. It's not a fix-all, but it has helped. But one of our biggest accomplishments with workforce development is those students that come through our building. We have all from middle school through medical school. We have students in the building every year. We have about 25 academic partners from Fort Worth ISD all the way to the TCU Medical School and the Health Science Center there in Fort Worth. And so that is huge. We've had a lot of nursing students come back to work at James L. West because they saw what the environment was like, the passion, the love. They figured out that they love working with people with dementia.
Yeah, I was once told it's a calling.
Right.
And I can definitely tell that it brings you joy. And can you talk a little bit about, as the leader of the organization and the commitment to the organization, what brings you joy in the day-to-day?
I love making a difference every day. I love to go home knowing that we provided great care. In my career, when I fell into senior living because I didn't know that's what I wanted to do, I never thought I would have so much fun as I did when I just fell into a job. Just listening and laughing and having a great time with these older adults that were in retirement. I thought, my goodness, where have I been? Well, now, I'm not as directly connected with the residents because of my position, but I still know every night when I go home that we made a difference every day. And I have had a few positions that I didn't have that feeling, and I didn't stay there very long. So I do find joy in our teammates making a difference in their lives because I feel like we're there to minister to them as well and to help them have a better quality of life. And we all know that sometimes their lives are not great at times, but we all have challenges. But when you come to work, you should have a good time. You should have a good time. You should feel safe. You should be fed well. And we work hard to do all that with our teammates and just loving on them so they'll love on our residents well.
So I have a question. There aren't a lot of James L. West out there. Oftentimes when we look at memory care, I think a lot of us get focused, and even I would say in my own experience, you get focused on the real estate end of things. Mm-hmm. You look at the new buildings with all sorts of bells and whistles. But if you had advisement for somebody who's beginning the journey to look for whether it's an assisted living or a skilled nursing or an adult day program, what would you recommend? What sort of criteria, or if you had a checklist
For a
what would you
caregiver?
say for a caregiver looking at making that transition to placement or even adult day care?
Yeah, I think the first thing is talk to people in the area, get some personal recommendations, but spend some time there. Go in and sit down and have lunch or engage in an activity, but spend some time. Don't let the sales team rush you in through a tour and rush you back out. You need to spend some time there and find out what's going on. But we have an ambassador program where we connect any new prospects with current families so they can talk to the family members that are actually have their loved ones there and hear what it's like day to day. So we want them to know that they've got people that would be what we think is unbiased, to share with them what it's really like. Because we want reality. We want them to understand it's not pretty every single day, that there's tough times, there's tough things we deal with, but that we're going to work hard each day to make the quality of life perfect and to have joy and just to have a great time with their loved ones. So connecting them with people, I think they just need to know the organization. Just because it's the pretty new building on the corner is not a great recommendation. Ask your questions, do your homework. This is your loved one.
What about being a nonprofit organization? How does that play?
There is a difference. I've worked in both, and I do believe that the not-for-profit organizations provide better care. There's research out there to show that not-for-profits do have higher staffing ratios and provide more resources for their staff to care for their loved ones. So I do believe there is a not-for-profit difference, and I think it's worth families considering that.
Well, and I guess if I would say that, I would have to acknowledge congratulations to you. You are the newly appointed chair for Leading Age of Texas.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that organization?
Yes, Leading Age Texas is a wonderful organization that represents senior living providers throughout the state. So any senior living provider that's a not-for-profit provides services from home care services to nursing to independent living, whatever. So the Leading Age Texas represents the members, provides help with advocacy, regulatory issues, education. We have some great leadership training that we provide. I was just at a conference a couple of weeks ago. We had some great mid-level management learning to be better leaders, and that was fun to see them growing. And so it's a wonderful organization. I've been involved with Leading Age Texas for most of my career, so 30 years or so, and have the privilege of being the chair at this time.
Well, congratulations. And you also have an excellent secretary.
I do. Thank you, Tim.
That would be me. But, well, Cheryl, thank you for your time today. Thank you for everything you do every day for the people that we serve. And thank you for joining us at the forefront.